Oh, yeah, the same Harvard lawyers that fill up Goldman Sachs, ripping us off for trillions, the same ones that create derivatives and steal all the pension funds. You mean those geniuses? While BP CEO Tony Hayward is busy watching yachting races, Barack Obama, who took 2 vacations immediately after the oil spill, spends his time between playing golf and going to the movies. If the disaster is on a par with 9/11, as Obama claims, then why is he fiddling while Rome burns? Every effort to find a solution to the crisis while cleaning up the mess has been lackluster and half-hearted. The federal government's hyped rhetoric about how bad the consequences of the spill has not been matched with the appropriate action to combat the problem. In hindsight, it's becoming clear that the government has deliberately botched the response and prevented local authorities from doing their jobs, just as FEMA deliberately sabotaged the state response to Hurricane Katrina. Yeah, what happened 3 days ago? 20 more state skimmers sent out there by Jindal in Louisiana, and the Coast Guard showed up and said no. That's been going on for 50-plus days of the spill, since a week or so in. In order to make the crisis much worse and create the pretext for a police-state response, gun confiscation, and ultimately more federal power. And then we link to all the things that are happening right now that this oil spill is distracting from. Numerous reports have surfaced of local and state authorities being prevented by BP contractors and U.S. Coast Guard from helping. To address the devastation the spill has created in the region, Governor Bobby Jindal has ordered the state's fleet of 16, now they're reporting 20, vacuum barges to clean up the oil in Louisiana marshes. On Wednesday, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted the barges and ordered them to stop the cleanup. Ostensibly, the Coast Guard wanted to inspect the barges, but that then didn't inspect them. Then they wanted to inspect the history of the barges. Just like unions, will go in and block a construction just by, sitting around on their hands and doing nothing. The federal government shows us, the slaves, who's boss. Nothing happens without their say-so. Not until Obama's passed that carbon tax on everything you do and a new dark age of tyranny's brought in, a new age of feudalism to control your every movement. Not until then will they fix that oil leak. And not a minute later. And not a minute earlier. It just ordered them back to the dock and then did nothing. Just as happened with Katrina, BP, in alliance with the feds, have erected an information blockade around the spill. Reporters have been harassed, threatened with arrest, and prevented from accessing the affected areas. Oil spill cleanup workers have been gagged from talking about their experiences. They're not allowed to wear respirators because then they'd have to admit that the oil was off-gassing toxic chemicals. Foreign ships have been prevented from helping in the cleanup efforts. Every effort has been made to stop the truth about the oil spill from being uncovered. Almost everything we learn about the situation comes directly from BP or the federal government. The strictly enforced cover-up shows the authorities are more concerned about protecting the information lockdown than actually cleaning up the spill. Exactly. The way the whole system is set up is to keep the spill going and to contain news coverage of what's happening. And then Obama comes out and says, I got to have a carbon tax. I got to nationalize the oil companies. We got to tax you. The Jones Act, which forbids foreign ships from operating between U.S. ports, can be waived, but hasn't been. Obama could have had the problem solved in a matter of weeks, but he immediately refused the help. Of 13 entities that had offered the U.S. help with the oil spill assistance within about 2 weeks of the Horizon rig explosion. And it just goes on and on. Every indication points to the oil spill having been deliberately caused, either by negligence or sabotage, by a combination of BP executives and those who hold the reins of power in the Obama administration. And again, BP's his third biggest contributor, and is deep, deep in with Al Gore, and the biggest funder of the carbon tax propaganda. This goes beyond Obama himself, who's merely there to read the teleprompter and employ his fine acting skills in selling his agenda that the globalists hope to enforce on the back of the contrived crisis. On May 27th, the New York Times reported on how just days before the explosion, BP chose to use a salt water solution to seal the cement around the casing pipe, which was known to be a far riskier option than the stronger, heavy drilling fluid. This is after the well was already cracked and leaking, we now discover. Folks, it goes into all the evidence, how they had the motive to do it, why they did it, how they're continuing to cover up. Stay with us. You know, I understand citizens being angry by the CEO of BP being out Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at yacht races. I mean, I know this country's in trouble, and I don't need to do 6 radio shows a week. I don't need to do all the radio interviews I do. I don't need to do all the newspaper interviews I get. A lot of times I want to be home with my family. I want to be out fishing. I want to be out hiking. I want to be working out. I want to be oil painting. I want to be, doing all the things that I enjoy. Visiting with family. Traveling. But no, I'm stuck here in Austin most of the time. I work 7 days a week. I do radio 6 days a week because I know our society is in trouble. But why is the public mad at the BP CEO for out yachting? America is sinking. States are going bankrupt. Our industrial capacity is gone. We're about to lose our AAA rating. We're about to have to devalue the currency even further. We're in a world of hurt. Every economic indicator and societal indicator shows we're in a depression. And it's going to get steadily worse. And you got almost 4,000 people showing up at a LeBron James fan appreciation meeting to worship him and to beg him to not leave Cleveland and the Cavaliers. And then he shows up 10 minutes before the end and was basically rude to people because he thinks you're a bunch of jokes, a bunch of schmucks, because you are. Your priorities are screwed up, America. America is sinking. America is leaking. America is burning and falling apart, just like the Gulf of Mexico. And you don't care, just like the BP CEO. Because everybody's a bunch of selfish people who aren't serious and aren't focused and aren't angry about liberty and freedom, who aren't serious, who aren't willing to fight for it or speak up for it. Your inaction will buy you chains and slavery. Understand that. All right, I'm done talking about that. Let me just boil down the facts instead of going over this detailed article Paul Watson wrote. Because at the end of the article, it's a long article. At the end of the article, it gives the phone numbers out. And if you read the entire article, and you need to, folks, if it was about LeBron James, I'm sure some of you would. This is about your future. You would understand the evidence of it being a staged event, any way you slice it, the BP disaster, 100%. And their motive, what they're getting out of it, what the agenda is. But let me just briefly break that down, then I'm going to your phone calls for the balance of the transmission. BP's a top globalist environmental company that literally wrote the book in the last 20 years, owned by Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands in co-ownership with Queen Elizabeth of England, Saxe-Coburg-Gotha. Elizabeth Saxe-Coburg-Gotha of Windsor, the German queen and the Dutch queen. And they're globalist. They openly, BP is always pushing for the carbon tax, key supporters of Obama. They want the new feudal system. They have always pushed for the U.S. to nationalize oil companies, but privatize the profit to them. BP already is so powerful, they get 80% of the oil out of Alaska. The government gives it to them. And it is then shipped to Asia. Only 20% goes to the U.S. BP is the sole licensure on really over 80%. And then of the 80% they get, 80% of that goes to Asia. I mean, that's how things are done. It's all rigged. Go check it out for yourself. Go research who gets the oil in Alaska. So, all of that's going on. And they don't want their competition in the Gulf. They were given an award. They were given special waivers for the super deep well 6 months before Obama took the restrictions off the entire Gulf. But he never really took the restrictions off. He only loosened them, allowed BP's competition to move in. Then the oil spill starts. All that competition's been barred after they already brought their rigs in from around the world, costing tens of millions of dollars conservatively just to bring those giant factory systems in. Like a floating space station or something. And now they're in deep trouble. And so you've got all that happening. This is a strategic sabotage. Now, I mean, BP is going to put in escrow of $20 billion. That's like when you win the lottery and they put money into a lottery for you and then they pay it out over 30 years. It's a pittance compared to their real profits. They'll just change their name, make a subsidiary. They're already talking about that, and then get more power and control over the oil companies and over their competition by doing it. But more importantly, Obama, as I told you 60 days ago, in fact, what day of the oil spill are we into? Will you look that up? I heard it a couple days ago, but I forget. The point is, 70th day? I mean, holy mackerel, it was 60-something just a few days ago. Time flies. So we know they have the motive. Now, I told you just a week into it, I said Obama is going to push for the carbon tax, and he's going to push for gas taxes and oil taxes on the wellhead, at the gas pump, and on all energy and on natural gas, effectively nationalizing petroleum. And now he's come out last week and proposed that, and they admit it. So all of that is happening.